And thank you. So what I'm going to show you today is a platform that takes the pain out of analyzing unstructured text. And we do this by enabling our clients to do the work that they're doing 10 times faster, generating meaningful themes and categories out of language data, using a combination of machine intelligence and human insight. So let's start with the pain. If you want to understand what people are thinking, a lot of the time the best way to do it is to look at what they're saying. That's open-ended survey questions, IDIs, customer reviews, social media. The problem is it's all language. It's messy, it's variable, it's unstructured. It takes people to understand it. And that's the pain. If you want to get insight out of language data, it's incredibly time-consuming. It is so much of a problem that a lot of researchers limit their vision and they don't even collect this kind of data in the first place. Or they collect it and then they leave it on the floor, all a part of it unanalyzed. And that's painful. We did interviews with about 40 people in the research industry space, and we kept hearing two issues over and over again: speed and trust. What we kept hearing is the human process for getting insight out of language data is too slow. It takes too much work. But if you throw technology at the problem and try to speed things up using automation, the problem is that people don't trust what's coming out of the systems, right? You want speed, but you also need to be able to trust the outcome. So let's talk about taking away the pain. At Thematically, our fundamental premise is that the role of AI is to accelerate human intelligence, not to replace it, right? And so let me show you how we do that. The process starts with your data. You put it in a spreadsheet, upload it to our platform. An initial set of natural language processing methods will pre-analyze the data set, doing things like pulling out words and phrases that are going to be useful in your analysis. Now, that's about as deep as most current technology solutions go. But for us, it's actually where the action begins. Our system will pull out, identify themes in your data set incredibly quickly. In fact, in the time since I said the words incredibly quickly, it will have gone through and pulled the themes out of 1,000 open-ended responses. There, it's finished. Now, at this point, you have an initial set of themes, and we put the user in the driver's seat, so that rather than having to trust what the system gave you, right? You can look at what it did, drill down, understand why it gave you what it gave you. You can give themes names. If the analysis was too fine-grained, you can merge themes together. You can boost the signal when the system is getting it right. You can suppress the noise when it's headed in the wrong direction. You tell the system what matters and what doesn't matter. And then you hit the big blue recalc button, and the system is going to redo its analysis based on the feedback that you gave it. And so you're going to get another set of themes coming out that is sharper and clearer and more meaningful. And you can then do this refinement and recalculation again, a second time, possibly a third. 4 times would be unusual because the system is getting to its outcomes quickly. The computational models are doing what they're good at, which is finding structure and relationships in the data, and your brain is doing what it's good at, which is understanding the goals and providing the meaning. So in terms of outcomes, what we have here is fast. I'm the tech guy. I don't like sales hype, but this is real. We've got, say, 1,000 open-ended responses, that entire process giving you results in 45 minutes. A dozen focus group transcripts in a day when the same data set had taken 3 weeks using traditional methods. We had a beta client who analyzed a set of in-depth interviews. It took 50 to 60 hours to get meaningful themes out, and in front of our platform, it took 4 hours. And in fact, the results were better, because what you got was driven by the data and not by the researcher's bias or by the research questions. A current client getting categories out of 23,000 web pages in a day. So the bottom line is your bottom line. What Thematically Discover is providing is a way to dramatically reduce the work and the time and the cost to get meaningful results out of language data. And once you're going that much faster, what it does is it enables you to do things that you wouldn't have imagined you were going to be able to do before with all the data that's out there. Thank you. Thank you.
So what is the big differentiation between you and some of the competitive sets?
Right, so there's a couple of competitive sets out there, right? One is the status quo. People are doing things using very traditional methods and traditional methodologies. The vast majority of the other solutions out there are simply technology where you put in the data, you get results, and you get what you get. We are fundamentally committed to the idea that you can't take the human brain out of the process, and we've designed the entire process around doing things that way.
What are your other language capabilities? You showed us English. Does it work for other languages as well?
Yeah, so right now we do English. Our roadmap extends to other languages. The kind of analysis that we're doing is going to enable us to get going quickly. Right now, the conversations that we're having are driven by the business needs, and Spanish is at the top of the list.
How do you monetize it? What does the terms of trade look like?
Right. So there are really a couple of different models that we've been using. In terms of the SaaS platform, we actually charge on a project basis. And typically we can then price it using project bundles and so forth. We also have been using consulting very effectively, where we have been eating our own dog food, so that we do consulting engagements, in the, say, the 5-figure range, where people are paying us to use and improve our own platform. We have our first 6-figure consulting engagement probably starting in about a month.
Do you see this as a tool primarily for agencies or for end clients, or both?
So this is really a tool for everybody, right? If you have the language data, it's a SaaS platform, and we're agnostic as to who is using it. Right now, we are focused largely, we have a pretty robust sales pipeline talking to things like the large research companies doing this sort of thing. But at this point, really the next thing is to sort of broaden the sales approach.
What's the single biggest challenge you guys are facing in building out your tech? What's the hardest problem you're solving?
Specifically about the technology, or just in terms of the business? I think in terms of the tech, we are in a place where we have a platform. It's robust, it's out there in terms of the core functionality, but there's a lot of stuff that you need to build around that, is the glue, the things that are associated with billing, for example, things that are associated with monitoring, things associated with support, and we are actually on the ramp up to taking care of those things now.
Sorry, one last question.
Sure.
Do you have APIs to integrate with platforms like SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, Decipher?
Right. So we do not currently expose any APIs, but the system is architected in a very sort of clean standard, a lot of internal APIs. And so we have designed it with that in mind. In terms of things like the uploading of the data, in terms of things like pulling out the results, right now it would be a pretty simple matter to do things like expose the result download using JSON instead of the way that we're getting it to the user right now. Yeah.
So, question for you. There's a company called Canvas that uses AI, but it's looking more at emotional reactions. Can Thematically get at emotion in terms of the open ends, or?
So currently we are not doing any emotion analysis. I actually have done commercial sentiment analysis. I was the lead scientist for Conversion and built the original version of their sentiment platform. The way that we are approaching this right now is that what people really need, where the real pain point is not identifying emotions automatically, it's understanding what's behind the emotions. People just don't want to know just kind of what people are feeling, but why. So what we found is that what makes the most sense is to take the data sets, segment them out in terms of the emotion. For example, we worked with a client who had reviews and do a separate analysis for the positive and the negative, and then be able to do those things, identifying why people are feeling the way they are. Again, it would not be difficult to add an API out to, for example, Conversion's technology or any of the other technologies in order to actually suck in the sentiment analysis and integrate it into our platform.
Have you ever thought about collecting public information, developing a syndicated model, rather than working on a project-by-project basis? And are there any technical constraints do you envision that would prohibit you from doing that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The short answer is no, we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. I've collected FCC comments and done analysis on some of the net neutrality comments to get a feel for what it would be like to do large public data sets. Again, the technology is pretty agnostic. And we're at a stage now where we have a product, we have clients, we have revenue, and we are ready to start exploring if there are other places we should be pushing into.
Thank you.
Thank you.